Can you tell what these 3 collapses have in common? They're all induced by the pilot. Today I'm going to show you how so that you can avoid it in the future. Ready? Here we go. I'm an elite paraglider with over 3,000 flight hours and multiple distance records. Founder of the Paragliding Men's Group, where great pilots transform into greater men, partners, and fathers. Mastery in the sky begins with owning our shit on the ground, so if you're a man who wants it all, welcome home. Hey everybody, what's up? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here today, reviewing 3 videos and highlighting a key insight about an all too common pilot mistake that is inducing huge frontal collapses. Okay, let's get right into it. This is Vale. He's a member of the Paragliding Men's Group. He's in a comp here. He's in the lee. He flies into some turbulence. He uses the rear risers, takes a big frontal. Let's go back and I'll show you that what all 3 of these videos have in common is that the pilot is using the brakes or the rear risers in active piloting, flying through turbulence, and then they are mistiming their hands up and it's inducing a frontal into the glider. So the moral of the story is that hands up needs to be thought of as its own glider input, especially when you're flying from active piloting in turbulence to hands up is a big movement for the glider. It induces a lot of pitch energy, and I'm gonna tell you some more details about that here soon. But let's watch Vale again here. He flies into turbulence. I'm gonna pause it. Look, he's pulling a lot on the left rear, and he's got solid input pulled on the right rear. And then it's actually his hands up movement. You can see now in this, you see that his left hand is hands up and the glider has started to frontal. Okay. He recovers mostly without a problem. Let's go to the next video. This is Eugenio. And this is another video that I've analyzed thoroughly on this channel. You can go back and find that. But here oh man, it happens so fast. So I'm gonna scrub back here for a sec. So you can see he pulls a lot of right brake to make a big turn, and the glider shoots out. And as he relents off of the brakes, he takes this 100% frontal. Okay. This collapse also ended up not being a huge problem, and he flew away from it safe. So the thing about going hands up, if you are active piloting in turbulence, if some kind of turbulence hits the glider and it pitches it up and you pull the brakes, then the glider is going to be behind you. And then if you go hands up from that moment, then you're going to get a shoot. Even if this is a subtle effect, even if this is not like a huge shoot, if you just add a little bit of angle of attack to the glider, you make it way more susceptible to frontal, especially if you're already actively piloting because you're in some kind of turbulence, right? If you're already pulling the brakes because you're in bumps, and then you go hands up and you induce just a little bit of AOA, that's all it takes to induce a frontal. So like I said, going hands up from active piloting should be thought of as its own glider input. It's not just stopping an input, it's actually its own input. This one is Yannick Gubler in Switzerland. So he is flying on a killer day in Switzerland, and you see he's active piloting, bumps, active pilot, hands up, frontal. And this was the video of the world record great reaction of throwing a reserve and just the softest landing ever. I love that. Okay, so my point here, you can think of pulling on the brakes as like almost like pulling back a bowstring, that if you do it at the right time, you can pretty much let all of the tension out of the bow before you let go. But sometimes if we're flying in active air and we pull on the brakes to keep the glider open, then we're pulling tension back on the bowstring. And if we let our hands up too fast or at the wrong moment, then we let go of the bowstring and it shoots us into a frontal. Okay, so you want to think of going hands up as its own glider input. Okay. So in general, stay active piloting until you get out of the turbulence and you feel some smooth air again, and then slowly let up on your hands back to full flight. If you're on the speed bar, the same thing is true. If you're flying a bunch of speed and you're pulling down on the rears on a two-liner or otherwise, and you're in active piloting and you're pulling on the rears to keep the glider open and flying straight, then you want to resume to full flight smoothly. Okay, you don't go from actively piloting to just putting your hands directly up, because that's going to create a bunch of pitch in the glider. And if the pitch goes down and your body inertia is moving towards the glider, then it's so easy for that thing to frontal. So if you're actively piloting, then that's fine. But then feeling smooth air, or at least being underneath the glider again, and then slowly accelerating the glider by releasing the rears or the brakes back to full flight is what you're looking for. Sometimes when you're pulling the brakes and you're actively piloting, there is a chance that you will just be unlucky. And as you check one side and let the brake back up, that you'll get unlucky and you'll take a frontal as your hand goes up. That's always a possibility. But as you can imagine, the best pilots in the world don't have this happen very often. So learning the fundamental skills, training yourself, having mentorship, practicing and practicing and practicing is the only way to refine these skills. You can't just watch a video on YouTube, and you can't just go to one SIV and think that you know everything. You can't just catch one collapse and think you're never going to take a collapse again. We're all between collapses. So hopefully this video can represent just one small step in your paragliding progression, and I'm happy to be that guy. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.